Hey, listeners, this is Shane, one of your hosts for RecLess. We're excited to be back for season four. We have new guests, a growing audience, and a new opportunity sponsorships. So if you would like to be featured or highlighted in a future episode, reach out to us at recklesspod@gmail.com. Once again, that is recklesspod@gmail.com. For everyone else, make sure you're following us on our social media. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Have a chance to interact with Tom and Jay. Hell, I may even thumbs up something you say. So, to keep up with all the latest news and all of our stupid shenanigans, make sure you're following us. All right, now on with the show.
Welcome to Season 4 of RecLess, the podcast expanding your knowledge and making you smarter about the field of parks and recreation. Your hosts are Shane Mize, Jay Tryon, and Tom Venniro, three career-long friends from around the country bringing insights, industry stories, and a surprise guest each episode. Thanks for swinging by. We're glad you're here. This is RecLess.
The ghost of Aaron Rodgers.
Any hints?
Well, he just got shit canned in New York. So are they a New York person or are they a
It'd be Green Bay.
Green Bay person? Maybe they're a Cal Golden Bear.
Ghost of Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, that's the first thing everyone's noticing. I like it. Welcome to the third episode of RecLess of Season 4, a podcast focusing on the industry of park and recreation through three close friends scattered throughout the country. My name is Jay Tryon. I'm your host today, and as always, I have Shane Mize and Tom Venniro with me, and as fitting as ever, Shane is popping a monster.
That's right. Second
What's
one of the
going on,
day.
guys?
2 cigars, 2 monsters, little workout. It's been a good day, fellas.
That's a Valentine's Day for Shane right there.
That's right.
And it was a pink monster, too. Very fitting.
It was a pink monster.
As everyone else can't see that, but I can see it. And he might have tried to hide it in the cooler he's got it in, but nope, it's still a little top. I can see the pink.
Yeah, it is. It's a pink one.
Well, speaking of Valentine's Day, we're recording this on Valentine's Day.
Happy
You guys
Valentine's Day, fellas.
Yeah. Do you have any plans with the wives?
You know, this is interesting because for years, the muscle memory of this day. So Hannah was a music teacher for the majority of our marriage, and their state music teachers conference was always over the Valentine's Day week. So I have not had Hannah on Valentine's for years. So I haven't been pretty good at doing Valentine's, and I have stuck to that. By today, I gave her, she hadn't seen the gift yet, but I left her the last 2 cookies from the Girl Scout package, and I just wrote Happy Valentine's. So I don't know if that qualifies as all-time romantic gifts. But
here's
happy
the better-
Valentine's Day to you.
Here's the better question. What flavor cookie is your favorite Girl Scout cookie?
Oh, lemonades, 100%. 100%.
I've never had the lemonade.
Oh, so good. I've eaten all those. I think I've bought 10 or 12 lemonades. I've eaten through every sleeve of every one. So now I'm working through, because I bought some from Derek Donlevy and from Michael Beanstein's daughters. And so these s'mores, we can't even get down here in Texas. So one of those two sent me some s'mores from the Midwest. We're working through those right now.
I got some s'mores this year. They're good.
Yeah, pretty good.
Tom, what's your
I think
favorite
Tom
cookie?
will beat me on the Valentine's Day stuff, I'm afraid.
I'm gonna guess Tom is a Thin Mint guy.
Ooh.
No, I'm not a thin anything guy, and well, as you guys know, and we've talked about before, desserts and cookies don't really float my boat. So if I indulge, it's the lemonade and then the peanut butter. There's a few different type of peanut butter Girl Scout cookies, but I don't eat them enough to even know what they're called.
So I'm not a good sweets person either, but I can chart my calendar on the Danish cookies at Christmas and the Girl Scout cookies at the first of the year. I will run through or over people to get those types of cookies. Love those lower sour bread cookies for sure.
Oh, okay. Getting a little off tangent here.
We did.
What
We
about
did.
you, Tom? You got any plans with the wife?
No, we don't.
That's
And,
bullshit. No one believes it. He's flying her in from New York and they're fucking parachuting into France or some crazy shit on one knee.
I'd hate to say that. I hate to make excuses, but ever since the kids entered the equation, I'm sure people can relate to that. And I don't mean to be the cliche, but it is definitely shifted, right? And so a lot of our whatever you want to call celebrations, gift giving has been focused and really centered around the kids. So yeah, this year we went out to dinner, a little date. We also, I'd say ever since maybe the last 4 or 5 years, even with kids, if we do celebrate, we try to avoid the weekend of Valentine's Day. So we did a dinner date night about 2 weeks ago. And then on Wednesday, so we have our sweetheart ball tonight. Typically, it's the Friday around Valentine's Day. So happens to be that the 14th falls on a Friday this year. And we said, let's just go with it. People with kids, they're probably trying to entertain them anyway. Maybe individuals are getting sitters and trying to do a date night, but it's been well received. No one's had any issues with it, and we've got numbers higher than usual. So it seemed to have worked out. So there is no plan for us to do anything tonight. I ended up Wednesday having a little celebration or Valentine's Day surprise. Went out, left early, went to the store, got some flowers,
See, I know it.
couple bouquets, a card, some Melissa loves peanut butter, Reese's peanut butter, whatever they are. If they're pumpkins, in this case, hearts. Got some of those. And then, of course, my daughter understands these things now, right? And she's starting to really want to dance with daddy and things like that. So I got her first ever bouquet of flowers. And it was just 2 roses because she's 2 years old. But she loved it. There's a
I
little
know it.
video on Facebook that Melissa posted. So, it's become a family affair, not necessarily the I guess the cliche romantic husband and wife. I feel guilty saying that, but that's where we are. How about you,
You know,
Jay?
I knew it would be different, the disparity. I don't know how Jay asked Lindsay to marry him, but I know that Tom like went all out and they got married in a castle. I don't know if y'all ever heard how I asked Hannah to marry me. I wrote "Will you" on one sock and "Marry me" on another
A sock.
on my socks, and I'd separated two groups of people. I was an RA in a dorm room, and I'd separated two groups of people that were in a fight, and I twisted my knee up, and so I was on crutches, and we were crutching to a spot, and I said, "Hey, I need you when I get to this spot. My feet are swollen up. I need you to take my shoes off." And so she's
Oh my
down
gosh.
on one knee taking my shoes off, and I put the foot out that says "Will you" first, and then the next shoe said "Marry me" on the other. And when she looked up, I had a ring. So the disparity in our romance is, tactics are pretty broad. I'm sure Jay probably landed somewhere in the middle of that.
Yes, in the middle. And that's another story for another day. We got engaged on a hiking trip
I
up in the
would have
mountains.
guessed. I would have guessed y'all were in some hike or something.
Yeah, we were up in Grandfather Mountain in North Carolina, which is about almost an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours away from Charlotte. But yeah, we were in the middle of the hike on top of a mountain. It was pretty awesome.
I would have fucking guessed it.
This we won't tell our whole engagement stories, but my Melissa's a Christmas time baby, December 19th, and I proposed to her. We got engaged on her birthday, so I will never ever forget our engagement.
Yeah, you're pretty locked in.
Oh yeah,
And you did the bridges of Madison County, right?
yep, no, yep.
Okay, I'm going to take this to the next step of this conversation and let our guest get the proper introduction, because there's actually a lot of things I want to dive into with this guest. And
What are you doing for Valentine's? Sorry, I've butchered it.
no, you're good. We're going all over the place here. We are doing so. I hate to dance. I'm not a dancer. Lindsay loves to dance. Like this, if we're at a wedding, like she's going to be on the dance floor. I'm typically on the side just hanging out, and she has for many, many years now been like, we need to do dance lessons. We need to do dance lessons. So I bought dance lessons.
Does she know?
dancing. I told her this morning.
Oh,
going
wow. Look
Good
at
for
that.
you.
Tonight. Yeah.
He beat both of
Really,
us.
he's
Yeah.
making us all look bad.
We're not doing it tonight.
Romantic
it's a
hikes and
future
freaking
plan.
dance floors and
You know,
everything.
But we're going to do some salsa dancing.
That's gonna be fun. I would love to see video of this, and
That's not coming
absolutely,
out.
we were gonna be featuring that on RecLess. We could do a little Dancing with the Stars RecLess version.
That's right.
I do want to say that your story, for whatever reason, reminds me of one of our guests, who I could only assume is the most suave Valentine's Day individual that I'm only guessing, but Johnny O is quite the husband, right? I
Yeah,
would love to know what Johnny O is doing with his wife on Valentine's Day.
He's posting it somewhere. I can promise you that.
We'll get that story backed up for him for sure, because he'll definitely have something
post.
out there, if
He'll
not
share it.
multiple things. Okay, let's move on to the guest, because like I started to say, there's a lot of things I want to dive into with this guest. I've known the guest for many, many years, but as I was looking into all the work they've done, it made me think of all these different directions that this conversation can go. So I want to really just get started with that. Both of you also know this guest. They've served in a variety of different roles in the park and rec industry. They started their career in Vermont, working for AmeriCorps as the director of service learning. And then they relocated to North Carolina in 2009 and continued to work for AmeriCorps until they transitioned over to a local park and rec department and was the assistant supervisor for festivals and community celebrations. There's some also like random things they do that I'm going to throw into this chat. And they're the treasurer of their homeowners association. So I don't think we've ever talked about anyone being involved in their homeowners association. So that's unique. They also serve as the vice chair of their local park and recreation advisory commission, which I don't think we've had anyone that has done that, which I think that's very intriguing to get involved in that, obviously, like with this line of work, because, you know, we're dealing with it on a regular basis, but then to sit on that on a local level is kind of neat. And you obviously have a ton of knowledge you can bring to the table. They are a regular speaker, both at state conferences and national conferences. As the name of the guest says, with the ghost of Aaron Rodgers, they are big New York Jets fans. So we are constantly talking about football whenever I am with this guest. Any guesses who this might be?
Do they have NRPA director school experience?
Not director school.
Okay.
But other schools. And we're going to dive into that too. Our guest has successfully led projects with notable organizations such as NCAA Final Four Talks, TEDx, Immigrant Welcome Center, Rooted Endurance, and NC State University. They have worked for a state association for over 10 years in their career. I
think I know.
Tom might have it.
MC.
Yes, those are the initials. And I like that Shane is still stumped.
I'm stumped.
I never get it.
Today's guest is the Associate Director of Professional Development for NC State and also the Oglebay School Director. Please welcome Matt Carusona.
Oh, hey.
Matt.
How's it going?
Hey, guys. What's up, everybody?
Look at that shirt. TEDx College Park. Got one of those.
Tom, the best part is I put this on this morning, not knowing some of the things that were going to happen today. So it was meant to be when I got the message from Jay. So
it's got that speck of red on the shirt for Valentine's Day too.
Sure does. Sure does.
That's
the
crazy.
First sweatshirt I saw when I
well, I got to go into my list of potential guests and cross one off now. So
good to know.
And to be fair to Shane, I know Tom much. We've worked together on projects where Shane, I know you basically through Jay and Tom and that kind of YP group. So I guess we're no longer the YP group anymore. We're the old people who were part of the YP group. So
we're the formers now. Yeah, absolutely.
YP, yep.
Good to see you.
Matt, hey, thank you for joining us today. I know this has been short notice. We did not have more than about 2 hours of us communicating that we were going to have you on today. And that's when I said, like, man, as I'm diving into all the work you've done, I've been like, oh, this is really neat. Like, I've known him for so long, but we've never had some conversations about different things that you've done and accomplishments that you've had. But most recently, you know, we've worked together since you're the director of both Supervisors Management School, you know, the two schools that you're with Oglebay, and I'm a part of that. And I'm just curious from your take on, you know, why do you think people should pursue the schools that are offered at Oglebay?
You know, let me go back a little bit. When I got involved with the Oglebay schools, it kind of happened on a whim. They went from basically assigning them to individuals. Then each school, they started putting out application, right? So a colleague that I had done some research with and some work in grad school at NC State that applied to this, never been to Oglebay before. So my first time managing a school, I'm flying into Pittsburgh, driving up these back roads to Wheeling, West Virginia. And if y'all haven't been to any of the schools, you're like, wait, where am I going? What's going on? Where am I going?
Being punked or whatever? Yeah.
Yeah. Am I being punked? I'm going to make the wrong turn, which is very easy to do. And I think there's two things about those schools. One is from a professional development perspective, you are in the room in an intimate setting with what I consider some of the top leaders. It's almost like the Avengers of each subject area for Parks and Rec, right? We're bringing together the best speakers, the best thought leaders, the best subject matter experts to share their knowledge, give case studies. And then that's backed by a lot of the work I do and my colleagues do at NC State by a top tier university that has a PRTM program that is then working to ensure we're doing curriculum mapping, the curriculum, the content, the core is up to date. So, as Jay mentioned, he's now a region with supervisor school. We're giving each of our regions this kind of guideline, this framework to work within, that we're using research, we're using trends, we're using best practices, and they're using their experience and their skills to share. So that is kind of the next part. I love conference, and I see you all at conference others, and I present at conference, but it's quick learning, it's fast stuff, it's high level, we're moving fast. This is deep dives into things that professionals are facing every day. The second part, which is really why Oglebay works and why the National Training Center works, is the network and that cohort you build with your peers when you're there. There is something special about being basically trapped in this lodge on top of a mountain in the middle of West Virginia for a week. It's kind of like a summer camp for Parks and Rec. And what I hear constantly from attendees when they're given feedback or they're gone to is like, I have this network that I have for life. And I've been fortunate in my career, Jay is part of that, and my friend Chimreese and others, that working with the state association, I built a really strong network before I even went there. But there's a lot of individuals, this is the first time they're building that nationwide network. And I know all the three of you have experienced it through YPN and other things you've done kind of coming up through Parks and Rec. But that network, right? That being in the room, not leaving when it's over, right? Everybody's in the same place at the same bar, restaurant, lobby, connecting, whether you're partaking in libations or you're going for a hike, right? There's nowhere to go but with each other. And that makes a huge difference. And I think those are probably the two top things. And obviously, as we all do, being advocates of professional development, staying up on the career, staying up on best trends and practices. So that's a very long roundabout way of saying that network and that high level knowledge you gain.
Yeah.
I have never been a director school, supervisor school, any of the schools. And, and I've talked to people, I've talked on this podcast and I've talked to people before. I don't know if I'm built for it in some ways.
You are.
You think? So I can think pretty on the scale of logical to illogical. I can be on the illogical side, right? And what I find at times is when I'm in a room with people, if I really state my opinion, and these guys know it, it can, first of all, I can take over whatever conversation. That's not what I want, because I don't want to be the teacher in any room. I'm just giving my perspective of my side of it. But when I think of, I'm a huge stand-up comedy fan. And I remember one time, and I was a coach before I got into this industry. And there are times that I think people are built for things, right? Built for leadership, built for management, built for coaching or stand-up comedy or whatever. And I remember Steve Harvey talking one time that he went to one of those night schools, and he was supposed to speak to all these people that were taking this class after hours. They're janitors or whatever, and they're trying to be a comedian. And he said, if you're here, you're fucked. Like, what are you doing here? Like, you either have it or you don't. And I'm not saying leadership is like that, but I am saying at times leadership feels like that. Like, it's great to teach someone how to lead. They still have to care about people, and they have to want the best for them. And I think sometimes we get people that do whatever widget or program or event they do, and then we move them. And we've talked about this, out of that space into a spot of management where they're not equipped to do that very well. And the thing they really did well, they're no longer doing. They have to teach someone else how to do that thing they've done well. And now they've got to manage other people. I am 100% behind the idea that those people who want to be leaders and step into that leadership role need to know how to lead, need to know how to lead that new team of people they've been tasked with doing. I think my question is, and I think it's great to have you on because I've always wondered this, are there times that y'all either reject people or tell people, you know what, I don't know if you're a good leader. I don't know if leading is what you should be doing. You're more of a programmer. You're passionate about this. Because if we're just teaching everyone leadership without the conversation of does everyone have the capacity to lead or should they all be leaders, it seems superficial, right?
Yeah, I think that's a good question. I see Jay maybe wants to say something too, but
I would always wants to say something to what I say, always.
Shane, I think there's two different avenues with the schools and leadership. And I can't speak. So one school I have nothing to do with, though I work with Taylor at NRPA all the time, and we share ideas and stuff, is Director School. Director School is independently NRPA. There's an application process, and that is very much about leadership. The other schools are about leadership, but they're also about, whether it's soft skills or hard skills, you don't have to be a leader to succeed in those schools. I think supervisors is a great example. There's a lot of supervisors that, while they have to lead, they're not leaders, right? They're managers. And I talk about this with individuals all the time. You have really strong leaders who they're leaders. They want to continue to move up and be the heart of organization. And then you have really strong managers. They want it, to your point, Shane, they want to find that sweet spot and they want to manage it, whether it's people, whether it's programs, or it's projects. And what I love about supervisors and some part revenue and maintenance is it really can appeal to both. Supervisor is a great example. You're learning a lot of soft skills, right? So especially if you're someone who has a challenge with, hey, I can't connect with this generation that's coming into the workforce, or I can't connect to some of my team, right? We're talking about those things. We're working through, right? What are those tools you can use so you can be the best in whatever position you're in? We're not saying, hey, you're going to be the next director. If you want to be, that's great. We're not pushing for that. So I don't think we've necessarily turned people away. There's some people that maybe we've had a conversation with, like, hey, if you're here, take it serious. If you don't want to come back next year, that's fine. Just like any conference or event. And I can tell you stories about working with the state association, with debates I've had about, hey, what's the level of professional development that comes into this, right? Are you here to connect and have fun, or are you here to learn? And
Sure.
It's a balance. So yeah, I think director school is a little more nuanced, right? If you don't want to be a leader and you're at director school, you may want to reflect, hey, you're taking a spot from someone else. Maybe you shouldn't be there.
Sure.
With the other ones, I think it's really more about adding tools to your tool belt, right? Versus putting yourself in a position. Yes, you are helping put yourself in a position to lead and to move up an organization, but it's not a guarantee, and it's not meant to be a step. It's meant to be more, hey, let's put some more tools on your belt. Let's give you those case studies. Let's give you those opportunities to succeed.
Matt, you mentioned, I'm going to change gears a little bit here, and I think you answered the question obviously really well to Jay's early point of the sell of what makes them so unique. So you just mentioned in your response to Shane's always challenging questions, state associations. And when I met you, it was through TEDx College Park, and Nile put this gang of people together, and it was great, and I know you had a lot of skills.
That was his Avengers.
It was, yeah. Nile put his own Avengers. I did want to ask, actually, let me just pause my question. What Avenger is Jay? I mean, is he like the Flash?
I don't know him all, but he's the brain one, right?
What's the guy with the Doctor Strange? Is that what we're talking about?
Oh, that connects. I don't even know him, but that connects.
He's got some cool powers.
He does.
I don't know anything.
He's a
things.
little prickly though. But
Done.
Anyhow, let's go back to the matter at hand. State associations. I don't think have we had anybody from state association leadership at this point? Yeah. So.
No.
We have not.
And we've toyed around with that. We've met a ton of different state association leaders, and I really want to focus there. You had mentioned before about that professional development level for the state association. And so can you take us a little bit inside that world? You know what I mean? I think for people out there, there's individuals we all know that have maybe transitioned from state association to Parks and Rec in the field, or association work to, what is it, Jane Addams is now with the Academy, right? And so what is it like, for someone who's interested, and they may think, and Michael Biedenstein, I guess he's the closest one we've had as a guest who's gone from practitioner to
and Haley.
NRPA. Yeah. So,
and she was never a practitioner,
but not necessarily at the state level. I really always enjoyed what you were doing at the state level when we worked together, and I was kind of coincidentally working with New York State Recreation and Parks. I had picked your brain, and I had looked to you all as leaders. Take us inside that world. What are some of the, what are your focuses when you're working for state association leadership, and how do you really work through the mission, I guess, of what it might be? And we've talked about the differences between, is it advocacy? Is it professional development for the members? Very long question. I'm not sure if I'm wording it well, but I just want you to take us inside that world.
Full disclosure, it's been over 2 years since I left the state association, but I did almost 13 with the North Carolina Association. Awesome organization. When I got involved, myself and then Michelle Wells kind of took over leadership of the North Carolina Association was when there was a real trend, and this wasn't necessarily a bad thing, but a lot of the state associations were being run by basically retired directors. And that's not a bad thing, but we're talking as the way people learn change, as the way our communities change, as the way we interact in our field from a learning development standpoint to just a community to an engagement standpoint, it was changing, right? And there were higher expectations and stuff. So we were a pretty small association, about 1,600 members, and we spent a lot of time reflecting on actually what is our goal, what is our mission. 36 board members, which was wild. Knocked it down to 5. Yeah.
Wow.
Knocked it down to 5. As staff, we got way more involved with the board, right? So staff and board would meet together on a regular basis, really became this agile team. And a lot of that, I give a shout out to Michelle Wells, who's still there as the executive director. You know, she really pushed hard and to a lot of pushback from some individuals who said, well, we've always done it this way, so why should we change it? I'm sure you all have heard that sitting on multiple levels. So I was given a lot of freedom to just blow up how we do our communications, how we do our programming and stuff. And probably the big game changer, as you all know this, working in public parks and recreation, is we did a needs assessment of our members and asked what they actually wanted versus reacting to, you get a phone call. Hey, you need to do this is a true story, phone call. Hey, I really think you need to do a dinner theater workshop. How a park and rec agency should put on a dinner theater program. We're like, yeah, that's cool. But you and 3 people could go attend that workshop. And that's how the organizations run. And that's how a lot of other state organizations run. So not anymore how they ran. So we started kind of working with our board, who is super supportive. Dale Smith was a big leader and changer, and we all probably know that name. She was our president during that time. Stephen Pelos, Lisa Wolf, a couple others really kind of supported our staff as we started to change that. And we focused on 3 things. We focused on how do we grow our membership, right? Because the more members we have, the more feedback we have, the more engagement we have. How do we grow our attendance at our workshops, and how do we level up, right? How do we bring the level of the content we deliver up? So we knew we don't have the resources at NRPA, but to your point, Tom, we're getting calls from other state associations. We're getting contacts from even NRPA saying, hey, you're doing this. How do we do it too? And that was always our goal. And if y'all know me and know how I work, I always say, all right, how can we do it better? How can we push the limits? All right. So we started doing that, again, resistance to change. And we kind of focused ironically, I looked at the Oglebay schools and said, hey, these are really great. Why don't we do a light version and do it as 2-day workshops for the state association? I had some involvement with Ryan Hegnes and doing Brand Aid and spoken with him and spoke at Brand Aid. So kind of looked at that model, and we built out summits. So we started doing these professional development summits, these 2-day, 300 person workshops, focusing on those really high level topic areas. So marketing, special events, programming, supervision. And then we did one, which is basically our version of revenue school that we called the Biz, because I wanted to call something the Biz. I thought it was a cool name. It was about the business of parks and recreation. Started bringing in outside speakers, started bringing in sponsorships and partners, and just actually building a business plan around how we did our work. And that started, again, changing how we engage. So we started getting individuals from Tennessee and Virginia and South Carolina attending our workshops, right? We started getting calls from other executive directors. And then our revenue grew exponentially. At the same time, we talked with NRPA as they were changing their membership model. We said, let's use this to change our membership model. So we did analysis to say, all right, what are we charging our members for all these individual memberships, and how can we charge them about the same amount, right? But get all their staff involved, because all of a sudden, City of Raleigh, great example, instead of 50 staff, 500 staff are members. That's 500 more people who could go to our conference. So went up. At one point, we were the largest state association in the country. I think now that California and Texas and some of the bigger states have switched their models, they beat North Carolina finally. Yeah, I know, Shane. and like Traps, I talked with the staff at Traps when I was at the state association, right? And how we did things. I went up to the Maryland Rec and Park Association and did some sit-ins with their boards and some trainings, talked with Virginia, right? So we started sharing. And that group, to your point, Tom, you asked a very long question. I could talk for 45 more minutes about this, so I'll try to wrap it up. What's great about the state associations and their current executive directors, and there's some turnovers. I'm sure you all see Tim is leaving Pennsylvania, and he's kind of been a legend in the space. He's done some really great work. Chuck left Maryland. I know Virginia has a new executive director. So there's changeover. But that group meets now regularly, and they were a little bit, but from my understanding, they meet a lot more to idea share. When we all know Anthony, when Anthony was at M Parks, first thing he did was call me up. He's like, "What are you guys doing? You know, give me some ideas," right? So that idea sharing, just like we share, or just like your regular Parks and Rec professionals share and lift each other up, that happens a lot more now. But yeah, the biggest thing was we changed our mindset of, hey, we're not going to do it the same way we've always done it. We're going to elevate what we offer. We're going to be willing to pay outside speakers to bring them in. So we brought in outside speakers from other states. You know, Chris Bass, I got to know Chris when we brought Chris in to speak a few years over and over. And we're like, wow, how have we not brought this awesome person from Georgia in every year to come speak, right? Lakita, who you all know, bring Lakita in, Ryan Hegernes. So starting to bring in some of those individuals with the national recognition was another big thing. I didn't really answer your question, but
no, you did.
Roundabout.
I feel like there's a lot to learn from North Carolina, the association, and you were definitely an integral part in getting them to do exactly what you said, change the mindset, and a lot of the other executives can learn from that. And I also feel like it's just something we don't talk a lot about. That's an avenue for individuals to pursue as a job, as a career.
Yep.
Well,
it's a small space. Sorry, Shane.
No, I just think the way Matt talked about it in the past is the only way people did it. I did 25 years as a director. Now I'm just going to go in, and it was, and no offense, because, I am from a department that had someone that had been there for a long time, Michael Lord, who I freaking adore. We all do, love her. But there's that model happened where people would just kind of transition that role and stayed there another 15, 20 years or longer. And she wasn't a director. She was in the academic space. But I think the state association can't be a little NRPA. And I think at times we thought that's what it is. First of all, you got 1,600 members, maybe 200 or so go to NRPA. That means 1,400 members aren't going to NRPA. And if you're treating them like a little NRPA and assuming they're getting all their professional development from there, you're poorly serving 1,400 members. I've got two questions for you. One, what should a state association be focusing on more than NRPA? Like, what are, in general, I know you could probably speak specifically in North Carolina, but there are state associations, if they're like, oh, we're just going to do what NRPA does, or we're going to take our leadership from NRPA, our marching orders, our cues from NRPA, but there's got to be something at the state level we should be focusing on that NRPA doesn't value, doesn't have the capacity for, or isn't in the weeds enough of. That's one. And while you're thinking about that, there are things like Brand Aid, the National Forum, generally like things like think tanks, that used to be more common in our industry, and we've lost them. And who should be revitalizing those? Like, should it be the Academy? Should it be Oglebay? Should it be NRPA? Should it be some state association? Should it just be Ryan Hegernes doing it, or Ryan Hegernes 2.0, some really young Parks and Rec professional who wants more than the industry's giving him? So I know two questions, but before we moved off the topic and I brought us back, I just think you're a unique person to ask about what state associations should be focusing on. And then because you have a bigger picture, we're losing some of these really cool things. Should we find some way to bring them back, and who should be the ones that do that?
So let me answer the state association one first. And it's funny you mentioned that second one, because Ryan and I have had previous, before he moved over to Barry Dunn conversations. I pushed him like, hey, let's do something like
because Brand Aid was amazing.
Awesome. And I'll come back to that, but let me share. So this is my opinion on what state association should be. And again, I'm 2 years out of it, and everyone's a little different. I think they need to be complementary to NRPA. Any state association that tries to compete with NRPA just doesn't make sense. As you mentioned, Shane, not every individual can go to NRPA, right? Not every organization can send their staff to NRPA. It's costly. A lot of times you're getting more leadership. Same thing. I worked with City Parks Alliance. I came in to do a contract role with them, right? Everybody who goes to City Parks Alliance isn't going to go to NRPA, right? There are different events and conferences and learning pieces for everyone. And as we see, and I have mixed feelings about it with some of our private vendors that are now doing these trainings and these models, there's a market to do more stuff, right? To your other question, right? There's a market, and I will address that in a minute. I think what state associations need to do is look at what are those specific local or regional challenges they have in their community. So I'm going to huge shout out to the North Carolina Association. So as you all know, and I know, I believe y'all mentioned it a couple of times. We had some really, really bad flooding here in the mountains of North Carolina, like devastating, right? And almost immediately, and I'm still privy to some of these emails and stuff, our leaders, our directors, our state association started putting together trainings on how to deal with FEMA, how to deal with disaster relief. Our state, our members are like, where can we send our maintenance trucks to go help you clear your communities out, right? And you all know that from your states. Like that is something that is really special, that those state associations, when they have a strong executive director like we do with Michelle Wells here, that they're going to activate this group, right? They're really good at kind of activating and being there. So I think that's one thing, is always being prepared to look at what is happening regional, right? And now we had some infrastructure and some things in place because hurricanes hit here, right? So in the past, it was normally the people from the mountains and the central part of the state going out to help hurricanes, right? I still remember we had an athletic directors conference, and this is why I stay in this field of parks and recreation. In Wilmington, about 3 months after it was a really bad hurricane, and we reached out to some departments, and this little town of Navassa, right across from Wilmington, was basically, they hadn't even been able to access their park in 3 months. So I told, they don't even have a parks director, they had a planning director. I said, hey, I'm going to have about 50 to 100 park and rec professionals. We're just going to roll out one day and we're going to clear you out. He's like, what? I'm like, just okay it, we'll be there.
Wow.
We finished a day of, goofing around, learning athletic stuff. So, a bunch of athletic directors together, it's quite a crowd. I show up with a couple guys in my little rental car, or whatever car I'm driving. He's like, this is it. I'm like, don't worry about it. And all of a sudden you see one white truck, two white truck, three white trucks. All of a sudden there's probably 25 white, different cities from across North Carolina, trucks coming down this little road to this park. And everybody gets out. They either brought their own chainsaws, brought their own equipment. They had a bunch of stuff there. And within like 2.5 hours, some things maybe were questionable, may have thrown a rope up on a tree and a bunch of people were trying to rip it down and move it out of the way. But they had that park clear, open, and access.
Athletic directors party hard. They work hard too, though. They're a hard-working group. Yeah.
And it's the best story about this field coming together to get someone else's back. That park sat basically abandoned for 3 months, and they cleared it out.
Awesome.
So I think that kind of local activation, then looking at those local issues, right? What are things we're talking about here in North Carolina? You're talking about Texas that maybe aren't issues in other states. The other part, I think, is, and something that I'm doing in my new role, is helping grow the profession, right? So how are we starting to have these conversations with high school students, with colleges, that, hey, this is a profession. It's a good profession. It's a profession you can make a good career on. You could grow in, you could be outside, you could be inside, you could do a variety of things. And then those kind of, not those starters, but that more basic workshop, right? Because as we know, just with the state conference, there's a lot of things that aren't touched on at the state conferences. I'm at the national conference, and there's a lot of people who don't have the opportunity or don't have the budget to go, right? So kind of filling in those gaps. And then I think advocacy at the state level is really, really, really important. In North Carolina, we have the Parks and Recreation Trust Fund. Our state association is one of the major advocates for that fund. And that is matching grants up to $500,000 that are being written by agencies like Jay's, like others, to build parks, to put in facilities, to do cleanup. They're doing LWCF lobbying and advocacy and whatnot. And I know there's a lot going on a federal level, and I don't even want to get into that and how that may affect grants and stuff. But being that local statewide advocate to continue to tell the story of why Parks and Rec is so important and to connect those pieces is why state associations are so vital, and why you could see when a state doesn't have a strong state association, if NRPA goes in there to do a conference or another organization goes to do a conference, you could see it. It doesn't fail, but you could see how much it hurts it. And when you go into a state that has a strong state association, like just in Atlanta with Georgia, you could see all that supplemental stuff, all those extra things that happen, right? All those organizations that came together to support it. It makes a big difference. So that's and I could say other things. I would say, go get a Tim Hurd or one of those, or Michelle or one of those executive directors, because I've been 2 years out of it and it's even changed since then. And I don't want to speak for them, but they're so vital. And those executive directors, they don't make a ton of money and they work hard, like 24/7. Literally, I was on text chains trying to make sure we're accounting for all our parks directors when we had all these floods up in the mountains. They're just those kind of people. Shane, to your other point about who's going to fill in those gaps for all those things, I'd really like for NC State and the partner schools to be one of those players. That's something I'm looking into, something that we want to, see if it's an option, right? So NRPA, NC State, and Oglebay say, all right, can we do something at Oglebay, or can we do something somewhere else, right? We have that capacity. We have a really strong model. I think there's room for other types of events, other one-off summits. I know NRPA is working hard, but they have a real small team.
Mm-hmm.
And I think if there's a young, hardworking, or not even young, if there's a hungry individual out there that wants to start their own thing, do it and reach out to me, reach out to NRPA, reach out to your state association. A lot of times it's a capacity issue for these organizations.
Yeah.
When I was at North Carolina, I was in charge of all the programs, the entire conference, all the marketing, all the communications, all the membership development, right? So you only have so much time to do that stuff. But I think we're looking to see how, with our model, with the schools, are there other topics that we could support professionals and start to bring that out there? Because we have a ton of individuals who want to be regents. We got a lot of people who want to come up to Oglebay. For the first time since I've been involved, every school sold out year one, including Revenue School, which is coming up in a week. And that's not cheap school to go to. All right. I've answered long
Cool.
tangent.
Thanks.
On
No,
your complicated
awesome.
question.
You mentioned helping future professionals, finding the career path, learning about the industry, really advocacy. And, you mentioned Tim Hurd's number or name from Pennsylvania. And Tom and I are on the Academy's task force for that career choice partnership that Pennsylvania had with NRPA and others. And, I love the video that came out. I actually shared it yesterday. I was at our local school district talking to career development coordinators and talking about our industry and how we can get more high school students to be aware of it. But with your role with NC State, what other ways can we as professionals give back and help the profession grow and help others become more aware of it? Like, what are you doing and what can we do to expand that reach?
That's a really good question. I think it's something that I know in my time with the state association, we've dealt with. We actually started a task force with all the universities here prior to the pandemic, and it kind of dissipated after that, where we were looking to recruit students in partnership with the state association that were involved in rec programs to say, hey, you could go to school for this. And when you go to school for this, it's a great career. There's some work there still to be done. I think, Jay, continuing to be advocates to get past some of the perceptions of what working in Parks and Rec is. My wife, who's a veterinarian, we've been married for, 12 years now, been together for 20. Y'all are cracking me up talking about your Valentine's Day story.
Did you hide a ring up a dog's a noose? No,
I did it. But I've seen some things, and for another day, or if we have time at the end, I could give you a couple of good ones.
Cool.
Especially when she did a residency at LSU. Whew, a lot of interesting things.
I bet.
But I still have to explain, and now it gets even more complicated. Wait, what do you do? Why is this important? So I think, Parks and Rec, great show, created some confusion at the same time, right? Individuals understanding that sometimes professionals.
Jay, Parks and Rec is a show. He didn't know. He's never seen it.
One day.
There were some great things about that, but there are some bad things about that, right? That created confusion, right? Understanding that you're dealing with $100 million budgets in some instances, right? And $1 million projects and hundreds of staff, right? These are when you're a leader of a large organization, these are high level, executive level, I would consider equivalent to C-suite positions. And people don't really get that, right? And whether it's good or bad, and I'm seeing it with some of the college students that are in my class, is students want to graduate and can I make six figures when I graduate? Maybe, right? So starting to sell them on, hey, you can be outside, you could be active, you could be part of your community, and you can make a good living. I think getting past some of those misconceptions is really important. In my role, and we weren't really sure what it was going to be so just full circle, what happened was NC State and NRPA decided to come together and take what was 3 contract positions running the schools and turn them to a faculty position at NC State. And they put it out there, and I kind of asked them when I came on board as a contractor, so why isn't one person doing all this, right? Streamline things, make things move. And I kind of, once they put it out there, I'm like, oh no, I have to apply. And like, there's a chance. And it was competitive. There's a chance I almost didn't get it. Right. I was like, man, I just may have hurt myself, but lucked out. So they took supervisor school, revenue school, maintenance school, and they're now all under me. So that is half my job, to manage those schools, to grow those schools, to potentially add more schools, as I've hinted at. But then I'm teaching pre-intern and professional development classes. So these students are about to go into their internship, right? Everything from developing LinkedIn profiles to writing resumes to cover letters to interviewing to how to find jobs. And I was blown away when I got involved how many are now even looking at municipal Parks and Rec jobs. City of Raleigh pays very well for Parks and Rec, and it is NC State's right here, Raleigh's right here. I know, Tom, I know you've been involved with some university stuff, but I believe you still are. And it's super surprising. So I think we need to start planting seeds when kids are in our programs that this is a career. So that's a really long way of saying that's the first time, hey, do you love what you do here? So inviting universities to come out, right, and be at your programs if that's acceptable, right? Inviting partners. And not every state has a strong PRT program. And some PRT programs are going away, which is a challenge too. We're fortunate that NC State has theirs, and it's, knock on wood, it's still good and it's still strong. But starting to kind of let them know, hey, do you love being a lifeguard? Well, you can manage this entire aquatics facility, because we know a lot of people want to manage aquatics facility. Right? Yeah. Right? Do you love being out on the field? Right? Do you want to go build parks and be a planner? Right? So I think that's a key part. And then doing what I know, Jay, I've seen you do it throughout your career, is going out and getting in the schools, getting out there, taking that time. Because once you're in the field, you're the best advocate for it. But until you're in the field, it's hard to explain.
Yeah. I love getting in front of the students and telling life stories and sharing. That's the thing, is I think there's so many areas of our profession that are unknown. Is, people just think of what they've done. So youth sports or adult sports or aquatics, but they're not thinking about the conservation or the nature centers or the park planning. And there's just all these other things that like go beyond what people understand goes into our industry. And then even like the park operations and the maintenance side of it, like every department is going to need someone that's going to help, with carpentry or with HVAC or, with any sort of electrical work. I mean, that's not every department might have that, but a city will have it or an agency would have it. It might not be Park and Rec specific, but it still has that impact and strong benefit package that comes with the job.
Jay, it's funny you say that. I was just in Vermont doing some snowboarding, got away for a little weekend, and my cousin, who works at the ski mountain and does other work, was asking what I do and said, I wish I knew when I was younger. He's a little older than me, so he's in his mid-50s, that I could have had a career where I used all these skills I have now working for state parks here in Vermont, right? Yeah. Getting to use all the same equipment, be out there cutting trees in the woods instead of doing it for these builders and getting paid pennies. He goes, I could have been retired by now, doing the same thing, living my best life. So to your point, Jay, right? It doesn't always click. And I started my career producing festivals and concerts, right? Future Islands, which is like a big national band, right? Producing their concerts in partnership with Chapel Hill, right? Blowing up fireworks in the middle of Keenan Stadium, right? Mm-hmm. Cool stuff. People don't realize, right? The event management here in Raleigh, Dix Park, has J. Cole's festival comes in. That is co-managed by Parks and Recreation, right? So it's a lot cooler too than people give us credit for. I don't know how to continue to share that. Not every community has that, but
it is, right? And it's a lot of us. I want to go and kind of go further into the awareness of the career, but a lot of us fall into it, right? Because all of a sudden, just like you said, you realize that, oh, I could do a job that I'm already doing this stuff like for fun every day, right? These are skills that I already had. I mean, maybe I've run a bike race, right? A local bike race that wasn't associated with a department, and then you all of a sudden find out that you could work in this profession. You could actually create these experiences for individuals that you already are equipped to perform and produce. So when we have these conversations with this Academy Task Force, we have the conversation a lot, or it comes up about, when we had this, I think on our last episode also too, is what you do, what's your profession? You're a what? You're a playground person. You work summer. What does that mean? And, the definitely the public conception of what we do, right, is definitely unique. And that's the challenge, right? Is someone in our group, I believe it was Joe Snook, made a comment about getting to the parents. Like, how do you get to the parents? How do you tell them that there's the campaign that they're calling it is Parks and Recreation a choice career, when in reality, what probably happens more often than not, and I could relate, and I couldn't agree with you anymore about how the students that I interact with, it's rec management, therapeutic, and tourism. Those those two that I just mentioned at the end, those are the popular ones. That's what people think they want to do. And then they learn a little bit about rec management and maybe fall into it or stumble it. So it's more referred to as a discovery major,
Yeah.
right? A discovery career. So my question for you is how you're doing some great things. You're telling me what we've had conversations with curriculum advisory committees that we're not teaching students about the professional development. There aren't classes on that, right? You're just sprinkling it in here and there with your rec management class or your, programming class. Same thing with the professional skills, LinkedIn profiles, all of that, right? There needs to be more of that. How do you go out into NC State or anywhere and try to get students to discover if they're not in the major already, what are some tactics or some techniques that you might be pursuing in the future to try to, again, help them discover this field?
Yeah, that's a good question. So full disclosure, I'm only halfway through my first semester teaching. So
that's all right. That means you got a lot of room.
So, and it's funny you say that. So we talk about it with our faculty. I've heard it a lot, and I've heard it before I got involved with NC State. It's a discovery major, and like many, I didn't go to school for Parks and Rec. It wasn't on my resume because so long ago. I started in corporate advertising, and then I was like, ugh, I'm selling Crystal Light to little kids. So I quit after a few months and joined AmeriCorps, right? I did the complete opposite, right? And then fell into Parks and Rec because I was working up in northern Vermont, and it was 2008 when basically they're getting rid of departments and things were not in a good space. And I said, all right, 2 more AmeriCorps members can basically run our Parks and Rec department. Obviously we were part of a youth center and nonprofit, a lot of stuff, but we were doing extra stuff, right? Running basketball camps and things I never thought I'd be doing, right? And then it just trickled down into events and whatnot. But for students, discovery major, I think what I'm doing currently in my classes is we have a lot of sport management students because sport management is in our program, and they're great. And some of them are going to be really successful, whether they're working with agencies or working with organizations. But that's a super competitive field. And there's only so many jobs in that space. And you could do a lot of the same things. This is what I'm telling them. And again, I am not trying to drive any of them away. I want them to go live their best life and get the career they want. But what I'm doing is helping them recognize that, you could go do a lot of the things you do or you want to do working with a professional team or semi-pro team or whatever it is in sport management in Parks and Rec, especially with a community that has a strong athletic department or a community that has strong facilities. So I'll use Cary here in North Carolina, for example, right? We have Wake Med Soccer Park, which hosts professional soccer teams and brings in the TST soccer tournament that is, it's basically the equivalent. If you guys know what the basketball tournament is, the $3v3 $1 million tournament, it's a soccer version of that, right? So we have JJ Watt running around playing soccer versus Ocho Cinco and Premier League players, like such cool experience. That is being hosted at a Cary Parks and Rec facility, right? When they have the North Carolina FC, right? A lot of your minor league baseball stadiums are, at least here in North Carolina, are in Parks and Rec facilities, right? Some of the, even Wilson, North Carolina, which is a smaller community, has some of the biggest kind of recruiting soccer tournaments in the country come out there, right? They have an awesome little mini minor league. It's like a little league stadium that looks like a minor league stadium, right? So if you're really into facilities, I've always wanted to work at a really cool baseball stadium, right? So I try to just lightly share with these sport management students, at least in my current class, that, hey, this is an option, and you're not just going to be, hanging on the playground and, doing simple things. It's high level. I think that's a big part of it. And then I think, Tom, you really touched on it, is getting the parents, because whether it's good or bad, getting the parents who are, guiding and supporting their kids to understand that going to college for Parks and Recreation is a good career choice. It is a very good career choice. There's a lot of people in our field, and I'll be careful how I say this. And I was talking to, shout out to Jason Jones, who is a colleague here, was with Durham Parks and Rec, and he's working with Duke, doing some really cool work about youth sports. Great person to maybe y'all invite in the future around youth sports and health and how they interact and stuff. So him and I have done some projects together. So him and I talk about programming, and you'll be surprised. There's a lot of individuals who get into our field that maybe didn't have a Parks and Rec degree who we need to teach how to program, like Program 101, right? There's skills that you get from getting a Parks and Rec degree that will help you accelerate faster in our field, including the ability to get mine behind me, it's blurred, your CPRP or CPRE right away, right? If you're coming out of accredited university. So I think it's selling the parents that this is a good career. It's a good long-term career. It's not, hey, I'm going to go work at summer camp, or hey, I'm going to go coach baseball, which is the misconception. So I think you nailed it, Tom. I think that group that you all are involved in is doing the work. And that is not really my main role. Is the partner schools. My main role is, and I'm starting to refer to them, they're really executive schools, right? My vision and working with the partners is where Harvard is recognized for their executive schools everybody goes to. I want NC State and NRPA to recognize this is the place as a Parks and Rec professional. I want to go get that specialized set of skills. I'm going to go to one of these schools. And where else can we offer other ones? And maybe come in full circle when we could start to kind of get recognized nationally, right? On list of, hey, here's top career choices, right? Is that going to trickle down to those parents and those students, right? How are we getting listed on top 10 careers to have? Because why isn't it? Right? You ask anybody who works in Park and Rec, why are we not in the top 10 careers?
Right. I couldn't agree more. You feel like there's an opportunity somewhere. We've talked about that. All these opportunities missed. These parents go on college visits. Like, is there some way that we can get in front of them? I don't know. And I really love what you said a little while ago about the different avenues and opportunities that this can take you as well. And I see that in the future. I see sports management, and we're seeing the diminish of the major of being it by itself, right? So the sports management, the health science, things like that. It's all gonna eventually. I feel like it's coming together, right? It's merging, and it's related. And so to get our name out there, obviously, to make sure that it's still in the forefront when you talk about sports management. But Tony Lopez said, and you both probably remember, he said on our he goes, one of the first things he tells his students in sports management class or sports management majors, I think, that are taking rec classes, if I'm remembering correctly, but either way, he says, hey, you want to work at the highest level? Well, there's 120 if you're counting hockey. I do. There's 120 or so high level positions in the highest level of professional sports. It's hard to come by that. And so to hear that, and Shane, you've talked about partnering with your minor league team. You mentioned Carey, Matt. We work with USA Baseball now to perform our background checks for sports leagues and so some of our other volunteers. And right in Cary, right in their complex, is the USA Baseball National Training Complex. Like in the Cary Recreation Center, right? I mean, how amazing is that? That
also an incredible downtown park. I mean, like there are very robust Parks and Rec department where you're getting exposed. Like Tom's saying, you go in for sports management because you're working with baseball, or you want to put on these high-level tournaments with J.J. Watt, but you're going to be sitting in a meeting center later where you're hearing about the planning of this incredible downtown park or how they maintain it or management, and that doesn't happen in sports anywhere else.
No. That has a Bark Bar, which is a bar and a dog park all in one, if you've not been there.
Yeah. Well, now it's no surprise why so many of you moved to North Carolina, because you do have some very attractive facilities and areas, and it's impressive.
Well, and so Cary is 10 minutes up the road from me, right? And we brought in the revenue school regents in, and we did a tour of downtown park. That downtown park, I think, was $7 million an acre. It is incredible. And the story about the economic impact, about the apartments and about everything that happened around there is going to be something we're going to talk about in our field for quite a long time. And it's now a model. Now, not every community can do this. And I think we need to recognize that some communities can do that, but other communities, a community center is the only safe place kids know to go to. Right. And those are the two stories of Parks and Rec. That is why it's so hard to tell, because we have major economic, and it's also why it's very, it's a nonpartisan issue for the most part, right? Which is a good thing, right? So you have this incredible economic development and these incredible partnerships. It's one aspect of Parks and Rec, but other aspects of Parks and Rec, it is like the glue. It is sometimes the only safe space. It's the only place kids could go get meals. It's the only place you could go outside and get active, right? And I think it's why this profession and why what we do is so great, but why it's so hard to sell. Like many of you, like my career has always been at the 10,000 foot level, right? It's been 15 years since I've worked for a department. It's what I love about what I do, because I get to see so many things and work with so many people. And anybody knows me, like I love being this career. I'm a Parks and Rec professional. I'm not a training professional. I'm not a university professional. I'm a Parks and Rec professional. professional. So that's a really big challenge. But then you get cool partnerships here in Apex. We were really fortunate when the Winter Classic came. We got a huge grant that the NHL and the Carolina Hurricanes are building 2 outdoor, basically hockey rinks with sport court. And the caveats were that they have to be accessible. We couldn't put any pickleball lines in them. Sorry, pickleball players. And that was a little bit of a contention. But they transferred to basketball and futsal. So the idea is how we making hockey accessible, growing in our community. And it's incredible, right? And that is Parks and Rec, right? Parks and Rec is partnering, and the Hurricanes are partnering together to do these really cool programs. So I know I went on a tangent there, but coming full circuit to your other question, why is it so hard for us to sell it to people? Because it's this giant swath, right?
It is.
It's public health and it's a safety net for people, but it's also economic growth, and a park is making apartments sell for millions of dollars and bringing tons of tax dollars. So it's out. Yeah.
I say to every citizen base I work with, whatever city I've been in, that Parks and Rec department is the largest healthcare provider in that community. But what within that parameter, what healthcare they provide, whether it's trails or access or a really cool facility, and some of them aren't this world-class facility, but it matters. That 25,000 square foot facility matters to the 5,000 members that it uses, just like one of those 150,000 square foot facilities matters to the 20,000 members it serves. And so, yeah, we're all the largest healthcare provider in our community. It just within that space, we all do something so different that it's tough to wrangle in a elevator speech, which is what we need when we're pitching to parents why this is such a great thing.
I haven't figured it out yet, and I've been working at high levels for.
Yeah. Well, no, but I think you hit it on the head. The problem is there's no one way to share it and to sell it, because we do so many things, and that's great, but then that makes it harder because you can't just hone in on one thing, because like you said, you got the community centers, the rec centers that might be the backbone of a community that these kids live and breathe by it. You have the health aspect of it, you have the athletic side of it, you have the conservation side of it. There's all these different aspects of it that are impactful in a different way. And
to dive in further to Jay's point, so now you've got a professional in one agency running a 150,000 square foot facility that's probably 100% cost recovery. And then you got another professional who might have been their colleague or the kid they sit next to in class running a 25,000 square foot facility that's 70% loss leader. And then you have to not only talk about the disparity about that and how you're pitching it, but you have to professionally develop them. And one of them needs to know how to do cost recovery measures, and one of them needs to know how to do community services. And so not only are we that in an industry, we're trying to make sure that professional A gets an hour at a conference, but professional B gets an hour at a conference, because if they're at the same session, it's tough for them to both get something out of it. And that's what makes everything we're doing really difficult professional development wise.
Shane, have you heard about the Revenue Development Management School at the National?
What a great pitch. Tell us more.
Sorry, I didn't mean to. But no, you're spot on. You're spot on, right? Even like, not just that, but we don't even think about like going back to natural disasters, right? When there's cold fronts, right? Where's your like warming centers are Parks and Rec agencies, right? Yep. Shelters are Parks and Rec facilities, right? I can't tell you how often when I worked for an agency or when I worked the state association, when it's hitting the fan, it's usually Parks and Rec who's right there with fire and PD and other essentials, right? It's we used to say this at NCRP, we're the most essential non-essential service.
Absolutely.
And that is, when we talk about budgets and challenges, it kills me when I see Parks and Rec and slash left and right. I get it. I live in a community that our mayor and our council are really supportive, and we're growing. So we have fee and lieu and a lot of other great things support us, but that's not always the case. And to your point, Shane, right? When leadership at a political level sees, well, this is 100% cost recovery and they have a shiny indoor pool and this and that, why can't we have it in our community? It's a challenge. It is the forever challenge of our field. And when someone figures it out one day, come find me. I'll buy you a 6-pack of beer, whatever you drink. So.
Monsters, pink guava today.
Or monsters. Yeah.
I haven't had the guava one yet, but I want to try it. I'm a big guava fan.
It's amazing.
But Matt, this has been awesome. We're going to transition to some rapid fire questions. We're just going to fire off at you nonstop and see what you think. Some of these might be work related, some of them may not be work related. But first one, I don't know if this will be an easy one for you or a hard one. I could see it going either way. You've obviously traveled a lot in North Carolina just from different conferences and being so involved with the state association. If you could visit any park tomorrow, what is your favorite park in North Carolina?
Oh, can I say no comment? Because there'll be a lot of angry people that will.
Nope. Don't worry. No one listens.
If you want to say your top three,
No. I'll do one, and this is completely selfish. It is right down the block from me because I take my kids there at least once a week. It's Pleasant Park here in Raleigh, in Apex. It's brand new. It's got a 30-foot Berliner tower with ropes and a crazy slide. It's got a nature player. I play pickup soccer with my daughter there. That is my go-to park. It's awesome. I'm there all the time. I can name a bunch of others, but I'm going to go with the safe answer.
Yes.
And it's awesome. Come visit. I know Jay, I've told multiple times to come out and see this park.
So I'm coming out that way next week, and I will reach out to you, but that's going to be another question I have once these guys go.
Okay, so if you had to transition back into a practitioner, right? What size agency and what role would be most appealing to you?
Oh, that's a hard one.
Mm-hmm.
I want to be right now or later on in my career.
Yeah, tomorrow. The boom, it happens. What are you looking for?
I don't think I have the skill set right now because I've been at such an interesting level. I love to be an assistant director at a large or mid-sized city.
Well, they'd let anyone be an assistant director. You see Jay, do you know who Jay's role is?
So I'll give a shout out to Ken Hissler and Charles Craig, both the city of Raleigh, and formerly Stephen Bentley. Stephen's now the director there. You look at those assistant directors of the city of Raleigh, they're doing a lot of really cool stuff. They have large teams, they have good budgets, they're doing innovative work, but they're not bogged down by the politics part. And Raleigh's a supportive community. I think that's a really cool one. 10 years from now, I want to be running a community that has a dock, and I want to be running the dock, and I just want to be hanging out in my shorts and my boat shoes, hanging out with
that
people.
Sounds good.
Okay, so you recently were in Vermont doing some skiing?
I sure was, yeah.
Was it Killington?
Stratton and Magic Mountain.
Okay.
Close.
All right. So how long were you in Vermont? Not for the trip, in your past. Did you
about 2 years.
2 years?
Yeah.
Why aren't you in the Northeast? I mean, let's put you on the spot. What's wrong with the Northeast?
Maybe you hated it.
Too cold for my wife.
It's too cold. Okay.
Not for me. We came down here when my wife got into veterinary school at NC State and never left North Carolina. I don't think I ever will. As Jay similar will probably tell you, it's a hard place to leave once you settle here. Sure. Raleigh and Charlotte are two of the best growing cities. A lot of cool stuff. I miss it though, Tom. So if I could convince.
You're an avid skier, right?
Snowboarder, but yeah.
Snowboarder.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Where are your top three? Where are you telling people to go?
On the East Coast or anywhere?
Anywhere.
Oh man, that's so in North Carolina, you got to go to Beach or Sugar. They're good mid-sized mountains. In Vermont, I just grew up skiing at Stratton. It's where I learned. I've skied there, so that's my Northeast. And then I'd say Heavenly is probably, if I'm going out west, is my favorite. I've only been out there a few times. So
where's that?
Tahoe.
Okay.
Utah. Yeah.
I cannot picture Shane going down a mountain. But
I've seen Shane on the skateboard though. I've seen you on that longboard skateboard. Same idea.
Yeah, not under control on a mountain. I don't think I'd be going down under control. Yeah, unfortunately.
So Shane, if you ever make it to Oglebay, there's a ski hill there.
Okay.
And I will give you lessons, and we will get video. I'll strap a GoPro on you.
All right. Now we're talking.
It's a hill. It's not a mountain. It's a hill.
Oh, man. That's probably what I'd need.
Shane, have you had experience in like legitimate snow? I mean, to where, like, I'm sure you don't have the apparel.
So I didn't really know much about snow until we moved to Illinois for grad school.
That's right. My
mom and stepdad had lived in Oregon and Colorado, and I'd visit them for Christmas. But I did ski once, and they wanted us to wear these ski outfits. And personally, just on brand, I took my blue jeans and sprayed them with that anti-wet stuff, and I skied in blue jeans. So I'm sure that won't shock you.
Okay.
Anti-wet stuff.
Whatever
That
it was,
sounds-
that stuff you spray, and then it,
Sure.
the ice just slicks right off. I was cold as hell.
Okay, Matt, I'm coming to Durham next weekend, and I don't know how much time you spend in Durham. I'm not out that way that often. Is there a restaurant that I need to go check out?
In Durham?
And it doesn't have to be like right there in Durham. I don't know that I'm going to be like driving 35 minutes, but in the Durham area, so Durham, Chapel Hill area, what would be a good restaurant you'd recommend?
For dinner or just for lunch? I'm a restaurant nerd, so you're like
either one.
you're going a deep dive.
Either one.
So if you're by RTP, go check out the Box Yard, which is just a cool space. It's all shipping containers, and it's like
Cool.
breweries and different food and cool stuff. Chapel Hill Lantern is like the go-to. It's like a James Beard award-winning like fusion restaurant.
Okay.
But that's more of a dinner spot. But if you're in that area, go check out Box Yard. It's worth seeing. You got enough good food in Charlotte. Box Yard is like shipping containers as a like outdoor funky food court.
Okay, I like it.
And there's breweries there.
It was Scotch Guard. That's what I sprayed on my pants. Scotch Guard. So Matt, NRPA goes to a lot of cool places.
Yeah.
Give me your favorite place that it's been so far, and give me a place that you think it should go to that you're surprised we haven't been to.
Ooh, my favorite place. I've been to a few. LA was fun. That was my first one. What was that? Probably 15 years ago.
2013 or something, maybe.
Yeah.
Less than that.
Or maybe not 15, but it seems like quite a long time ago. Or that was Anaheim, I guess, right? It wasn't LA, it was Anaheim.
Yep.
Yeah, Anaheim was really fun. New Orleans was a blast because I went with
great.
Rich, Rich Newman, who worked with Ryan Harganis in Westminster.
That dude's crazy.
Went on a jazz music adventure with him and sat in front of Stan and Moore as a drummer for Galactic in a tiny room while he jammed out. And the guy from Spinal Tap, one of the actors, was in the room mocking him the whole time. Only something you see in New Orleans.
Rich walks in straight out of Central Casting too, with that long hair of his.
Yep. So I will say New Orleans probably in the past was probably my favorite. It was just such a good experience, and it was fun. Where it should go. Ooh, love to see it in Raleigh because of all the great things we have going on with Dix Park and whatnot. Has it been to Boston?
I don't think so.
Boston is so much history, right? And then all the new stuff they're doing with the Emerald Necklace and some of the other cool things in Boston.
You talked about flying into Pittsburgh to go to Oglebay, and I thought, man, Pittsburgh would be a great spot for it too. Pittsburgh
would be cool.
I wonder if Boston, just from I can't wait to go again in a month, but I don't know if they have like the convention center. You know what I mean? That's the big piece there. I'm not sure if there's any. I mean, it's interesting when you see some of these
it's
cities
got some
that have
space and height requirements for our trade show that maybe some people might not be able to. Although you think that's growing because you would think now convention centers are all getting to that capacity because they all
that Boston Convention Center is pretty big though. I've been there for a conference with my wife for that stuff. I don't know. That's a good question. Tom, I'll be there for SMS mid-year meeting is in April, so Jay will be there too. We'll do some recon and we'll be right across. We'll let you know.
Love it.
Has it been in Seattle?
It has. That was my first. It was a couple years before Anaheim, but yeah, Seattle was great. That was a great conference.
Yeah, we just did Greater Greener in Seattle, and AP and their team with Seattle Parks and Rec did a really good job of kind of really bringing out everything and doing the tours and stuff. And I think, and I talked to Autumn from NRPA about this. She was there. I don't want to tangent too much, but the really cool thing, the difference I learned with my time working, as basically they brought me in to help run Greater Greener with City Parks Alliance is it's much more intimate, right? It's the size of a state conference, 1,200 people. It's all those tours. And I got to see so many cool parks and things in Seattle that I never would have saw.
The problem with Seattle is SeaTac, right? Like nothing's close. Like there's no airport, nearby.
No. I feel like Boston, if it hasn't been, Boston would be good or Pittsburgh. Yeah. Let's go bring it up to a good, let's go where it's cold.
Yeah.
Well, Matt, this has been awesome. I appreciate the time, and I know the guys do as well. Thank you so much for indulging us in this conversation, and look forward to talking to you in the near future.
Yeah, 100%. anyone's listening, if you're interested in any of the partner schools, find me on LinkedIn, reach out. Jay is an amazing region, and I've encouraged Tom to apply, and maybe we'll see him there one day. And there's quite a few others. Shane, we'll find a way to get you up there. We'll
Get me on
maybe
ski
we'll
hill.
have to. But I appreciate it, guys, and it's always good to see the names and faces. And Tom, I knew you were going to guess it was me as soon as he got into the TEDx stuff. So
Yeah, that's where my
You left
mind
that out.
started to spark. Yeah.
Thanks, Matt.
Thanks. That
thanks,
was great.
guys.
All right, man.
Great job.
Great to see
See
you.
you.
Have a
Later.
good one. Cool. That was fun, man.
I haven't had a lot of interactions with him, so it was great to actually get to talk to
We
him.
have
I see him on the periphery. I see him at a conference. I
Yeah.
shake his hand. How's it going?
We
Good
have
to
a
see you
picture,
again.
I think, of us three plus him and Nile from downtown Baltimore from the last time conference was there. And it was like Thursday night or whatever night it was, but he was walking around and
Surely not us three, because I don't think Tom wanted to take a photo with us in Baltimore.
It was later in the conference.
it might have been early. It was probably maybe the first day.
Okay. We went to breakfast the very next day, I'm pretty sure. So,
That's right.
No, you definitely didn't, because I've been talking to you for like 24 hours.
We still haven't got to that story. That'll be said someday.
I think we did. I think we've told that story before.
No.
Either way, Matt.
I think we have different takes on that story.
Yeah, for sure.
Because if you think we went to breakfast the next day, you might be thinking of somebody else.
The next day. The next
Next
day.
day.
After, yes.
That's
So,
funny.
Matt and I first got to work together with that TEDx group, and one thing I could say about Matt, I think everybody could hear that and what he's expressing. He's a worker, man. Like, he has got a lot of knowledge, a lot of skills, and he
Sharp
works
as a
hard.
tack, man. Like,
Absolutely.
he is sharp. He knows what he's talking about.
His role. So Nile would assemble. I guess that was pretty spot on. But he would assemble his little team of Avengers. And again, I don't want to go into what I was, but what Avenger. But Matt, he was our tech guy in that group. So think about everything we talked about with Matt today. We didn't even touch on tech.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got a very, very deep toolbox.
He's another
There's
one of those that do something so well, someone will find a way to give you that job full time. Like, he's just,
Yeah. Yep.
you want to talk about tough to find a job in Parks and Rec, tough to find a job doing exactly what he's doing. Very few people in the country are working for a school, but also working for an RPA, running these types of things, also teaching a class. Like, pretty unique role.
Yeah, there's several topics that I put on my list to bring up today that we didn't get to because there were so many other great dialogue going on. But, you mentioned his involvement with NRPA and the schools and NC State, but it's like, I also just wanted to pick his brain on being on local commission,
Yeah.
Yeah.
actual agency that you live in and being on that commission as a volunteer. And then, he mentioned at the very end with the Greater Greener, but I know his involvement with City Parks Alliance, and
Yeah.
that's just a whole nother conference that I've never attended. So maybe that's another future conversation.
That's
to follow
every
up on.
other year, I believe, too, right? They don't go
It
every
is,
year.
yeah.
Yeah. Actually, it's coming to Austin, I believe.
It is. Yeah, that's the next location.
So
When is
maybe
that? When is it?
If y'all come down to 2026, I believe.
What time of year?
Oh, I don't know. Come down and get some barbecue. Maybe I'll actually go to Greener this time.
So there are folks that I've talked to that go to conference every year at NRPA, and they go to this and they say that it's very different, and it is, like he just said, very intimate, but it's a very
It's for like park
engaging
foundations
conversation.
and stuff more. Like, is it geared a little bit more towards that group or no?
It's definitely more park driven. So you don't see the programming side of it. You don't see the obviously like aquatic component that comes with some of the sessions that people are going for. So it's just a different attendee structure, more executive directors, more directors, more leadership, and just more. I think there's less exhibit hall playing than there are just more meetings.
Well, with it being in Austin,
tours.
I'll definitely probably go. So maybe we can do a RecLess live.
Yeah, I
I
just
can
looked it up. It's June 13th, 2026 in Austin.
It'll be warm.
Well, hey guys, this was awesome. And,
He was great.
Glad we could get him together on here. And he's been on my list for a while to reach out to, and it just worked out perfect with the timing.
Sharp dude. That was good.
Okay. Well, Tom, looks like you're up next, and we'll talk to everybody soon. Thanks for listening.
See ya.
All right. Bye, everyone. Thanks, Jay.
Yep. See you guys.
Follow RecLess Podcast on YouTube for more content and outtakes. Listen and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Follow along on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn for news and exclusive clips. RecLess podcast is edited and produced by Hannah Mize. Thanks for listening. See you next time.